West African military chiefs will meet in Ghana on Thursday and Friday to discuss a possible military intervention in coup-hit Niger.
The meeting was called after ECOWAS leaders approved the deployment of a standby force to restore constitutional order. The regional bloc previously gave the junta a one-week ultimatum to reinstate elected President Mohamed Bazoum or face potential use of force.
Well, that deadline expired without any action over a week ago now. ECOWAS leaders maintain that they'd prefer a diplomatic solution to the crisis.
Well, let's stay with that story. We're joined by African politics scholar, Dr. Seshupo Mosala. Dr. Mosala, good evening to you. Thanks for your time. So not only do we have ECOWAS not making good on its threat to send through intervention to Niger, we now have a disappointed international community over the prosecution that the military junta says he will now have to face in that country.
Good evening, and good evening to your viewers. Yes, but you cannot have. Let's start here. There is nothing progressive about a coup or a junta government. Actually, it hinders popular participation. That's the first thing. So the junta in Niger, in Mali, they are not progressive, and many in Africa they believe that these guys are progressive and so on. But in reality, they are not progressive. So what is happening? You have a situation where the junta government, they want to prosecute the former president, and ECOWAS wants to bring stand-in force. Now, if you want to go to a negotiation table, you cannot go to a negotiation tables with such. You go to a negotiation tables in bad faith. You can't have a standby force, and also on the side of the military, you want to prosecute. You go into a negotiation table in good faith so that you can find each other. So what is happening right now? What is happening right now with the threat to military intervene in Niger and the threat by the military to prosecute is going to threaten the negotiations, and which might lead to further chaos or destabilization, not only of Niger, but of the whole region. So what do you need? You need level heads, people who are going to say, you know what, we want a solution, and no military solution could come or no democracy could be restored through a military intervention. What is needed is negotiations.
We have ECOWAS and the West, in particular the U.S., seemingly singing from the same hymn book on this particular matter. How much of a sway, how much power really and influence do they have on what happens next?
No, here's the reality. ECOWAS has always been intervening in affairs of its members. We saw this recently in 2017 in the Gambia. We saw this in 2013 in Mali after the 2012 coup d'etat. We also saw this in 1990 in Liberia, and so on and so on. I think there are about 10 instances where it intervened, and successfully it was able to restore order, and so on. So this is not a new thing that ECOWAS is doing. So I don't want to sound like those guys that believes that everything is the result of foreign interference. We have seen ECOWAS are doing this before. So as per the treaty that ECOWAS that forms ECOWAS is that it has to preserve the security and the stability of the region. It has to preserve a democratic system. So one could argue that it is upon those bases that ECOWAS wants to intervene. Of course, the international environment or players would support ECOWAS because of the dealings that they have with the former democratic government or the former president. Of course, they will support. I mean, we know multinationals from France, are benefiting immensely from the uranium in Niger. And there's also oil, there's also gold and so on. And they don't want to, because they see this junta government closer to the Wagner Group, which is doing the bidding of Russia. So of course they will support Okowasa in trying to bring about or restore democracy.
When we look at the current stalemate, we also see sanctions that have been imposed by ECOWAS on Niger, including cutting off of essential supplies like electricity. Is that likely to have an impact in as far as at least trying to steer the military junta back to the negotiating table and at least conceding to some of the demands that they've put on the table?
Yes, definitely it will have an impact. I mean, the cutting of electricity already is having a huge impact on business in the country, you know. And not only does the sanctions end there are further trade sanctions, blocking of borders and so on. And also withdrawing the membership of Niger from ECOWAS, you know. So I think about 5 countries, you know, in the ECOWAS support the sanctions, you know, Togo, Ghana, Cabo Verde and so on, and other 5 countries support military intervention. So we hope that the sanctions will bring forth or bring forth an edge to negotiate on the side of the military. And of course, the military, there is no way that a military intervention will bring forth democracy. We have seen this in Yemen, we have seen this in Libya, we have seen this in Afghanistan, we have seen this in Iraq. It has never brought any democratic restoration. What it has brought is chaos, and if they intervene militarily, we might see the emboldening of the jihadists. Because even in Mali you have jihadists, Niger you have jihadists, Nigeria you have jihadists, and they thrive with a weaker government. So an attack on a Niger state would weaken the state, and therefore the jihadists will thrive.
All right, Dr. Seshupo Mosala is an African politics scholar.